Welcome back. Thank you very much for staying with us. Now, SAFTU is slamming changes to the Ministerial Handbook. Its emerged ministers and their deputies now have access to unlimited free water and electricity. Government is defending this, saying they're entitled to the perks as part of the executive. It says official residences belong to public works and that the department must provide services. Government also says the properties are not exempt from power cuts. Let's discuss this further now with SAFTU SG, Zwelinzima Vavi. Mr. Vavi, good morning and thank you very much for your time. I'm sure you've already seen that response by government. Firstly, your take to it.
We are disgusted. We are not, however, surprised. Excuse me. We are disgusted, but we are, however, not surprised that this government, which have become totally a symbol of the days of Antoinette, of the French, situation where when the masses were demanding food, they responded to say, give them cakes. Mm-hmm. We are exactly in that situation. It is a situation of an animal farm. If you look at the statement of the government, it makes the most worrying statement that you will ever come across. Basically, government says, look, we are not providing this free electricity, water, and services to people residing in their private residence, but we are providing to those that we are giving them free houses, who are residing on the houses that are being provided by the taxpayer, and we feel that there's nothing wrong with us giving them free houses, giving them free electricity, giving them free water, giving them free rates that the municipality would have demanded if these were just ordinary people. And they see absolutely nothing wrong. And they go further than to say, we urge South Africans to pay for services they consume. Can you believe it, that we live in a country where the ministers simply are living in clearly in their ivory towers, completely isolated, and from the crisis that is unfolding in the country. Mm-hmm. They were here when SAFTU and countless other working class formations staged a 24-hour national shutdown. The key demand of that shutdown was that our people are saying that they can no longer afford to live in this country. The cost of living is escalating beyond what their salaries, their government pensions, and other services that government is providing to them can make them afford them.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Vavi, just for clarity, is it perhaps, as some say, the timing that is poor, given that there's such slow economic growth, or in fact it's the decision itself to remove the cap, because some would easily say that there should be a degree of modesty if you are utilizing the public purse?
No, the whole principle of asking people to pay, because that's what is actually happening. The pensioner, when they go to the store to purchase the paraffin, that is no longer affordable. Sorry, I make a wrong example because paraffin is zero. It is not included in the VAT calculation. But if they go and buy brown sugar or anything like that, they must now know that part of this is paying for the house of the minister, deputy minister, electricity, and water of the deputy minister. Every time a worker was earning just at the bottom of that initial minimum wage of around 3,600, must now know that when he sees a tax deduction, part of that is going towards paying electricity, water, and services. And it makes me to remember the statement of Chris Hani 15 days before he was killed. One of the things that he said in an interview was that he hoped that the future government will have ministers that will stay in their own houses in the first place. Why must they be provided free houses when they are earning millions of rands? They will be providing their own children transport to school out of their own back pocket, as any other South African have to do. and there will be
But easily there, apologies for interjection, but easily there could be another conversation that starts where some say there'll have to be security provided at their private residence. There'll also be upgrades that have to be done because these are high-profile individuals, and then these are benefits that accrue to them. You cannot remove them once you've made those upgrades. So would that not in its own also start another conversation?
Not at all. The security does the issue of electronic fence and bodyguards doesn't mean that therefore the government must provide them free houses and in addition must pay for them their electricity and water. That doesn't make sense at all. They are betraying what Christianity stood for. They are betraying their own voters, the majority of whom are poor pensioners from all of the provinces of their country. But more importantly, they know deep down in their hearts that what they are doing is wrong, and therefore they are betraying their own conscience. Leave the fact that they are kicking the poor and the marginalized majority who are finding themselves in deeper levels of poverty thanks to their programs. They are kicking those people in their faces, and they are basically showing us a middle finger to say, we don't care about what we are going through. All we need is more and more sweet things for us, and all of you can see what you can do about it. This is a statement that is extremely arrogant in the face of what South Africans are going through.
But I'm sure you would have seen, though, that on social media, there are even differing views. In the main, though, you had many that were outraged. But in certain quarters, there are those who are of the view that ministers dedicate their lives to servicing citizens. 1 minute, for instance, Naledi Pandor is in the US, the next she's in Gabon, locked in conversations for the benefit of citizens, meaning that they're generally absent from their families for a great amount of time. And that's why they say it's only fair that there be benefits and allowances for members as well as their family members. What would you make? What would be your position or statement to such an argument?
That's nonsense. Each minister in South Africa is earning around 2 million. The president is earning about 3.4 million rands. And the average wage of South African worker is around 3,000, 4,000 rands. That's your median salary in South Africa. Can we compare apples to apples? We're not asking the minister to go all over or on our behalf for free. The South African taxpayers are paying these people handsomely. In fact, if you were to compare the South African politicians with the politicians everywhere else in the world, you will actually realize that their salaries are on the top of the range, not at the bottom. The argument, therefore, that they must get all of these free packs. It is actually these free packs that makes our politics to be turned upside down. It is these packs that made them to vote unanimously in Parliament, as the ANC in particular, that it is okay to call a fire pole or a swimming pool a fire pole, or justify that one person can spend up to 250 million rands in his private residence. It is those packs that makes them to see nothing wrong when government is spending billions and billions of rands upgrading their government or public provided houses all the time at the unbelievable figures if we were to ask the Minister of Public Works in terms of how much money are they spending on maintaining those government houses. This is shame. This is shame to all of them.
There's always an urge by some to compare our ministers to CEOs in the private sector, where it's said the CEOs earn a lot of money, which is undeniable, they do. But do you think that's a fair comparison, though?
These people took an oath that every day in their lives will be dedicated into serving the interest of ordinary people, not of shareholders, of ordinary people. Most of them are the face of unemployment, poverty, inequality. And thanks to the mismanagement and thanks to them importing policies from everywhere else in the world and planting them into a developing country inappropriately, from your e-tolls to your macroeconomic policies, fiscal and monetary policies included, that have created a situation where 46%, 46% of the South Africans are unemployed as we speak. 53% of African black women are unemployed. 5% of the youth below the age of 24 are unemployed. And South Africa has become the most unequal society in the entire world, the most violent country in the world that have declared a civil war without anybody standing and signing any piece of paper, where we see 71 people dying every day, and as a result of that violence. It is this government that have created circumstances where we are seen to be the second most depressed nation in the world. If you consider all of those factors, actually, the fact that our kids are finding no hope except in drugs, in sex, that create more crises of fathers, of children that are growing up without the love of their fathers, which are now 76% for the African men, then you must know that these guys have dismally failed the people of this country and do not actually deserve even the salaries they're earning, whether all free electricity, free water, and free houses.
You know, these figures are honestly very disturbing, and one even wonders that if we're constantly talking about this ever-increasing gap, if we talk of inequality, one wonders that do even the employed appreciate that if we're seeing a great number of unemployed, it will eventually affect everybody because the levels of crime go up. Like you say, there are those that are using drugs. It's just a very difficult situation for everybody, meaning that even the employed need to stand up and fight against this level of unemployment.
Absolutely, Fundo. And that's what we're trying to do. We've started to mobilize for a shutdown on the 24th. We're going to be going to their parliament when they read yet another pro-business anti-poor budget statement. And we're going to go to ESCOM to protest that for 15 years, this country has been plunged into the crisis of load shedding. And these guys are doing absolutely nothing about that. In fact, they're doing absolutely nothing about that, even when they know that some of their inaction, inefficiency, or uncaring attitude actually digs them deeper into below 50% mark when we go into elections in 2024. They have been so engulfed by selfishness as against selflessness of Mandela, Tambo, Trisani, Joe Slovo, you name all of the heroes of the past, that they don't care about the future of their own party. It is about short term to them. You eat now as fast as possible, as if there's a massive sale. You must go and grab as much as you can. You must squeeze workers and the poor and the alike and get them to pay so that we can have absolutely free life. Free life for 5 years, nothing to worry about. In addition, we have security way above what South Africans are subjected to, the levels of crime and violence. They don't care. We are on our own. Bani Pichana said this in 1971. We are on our own, black people. And the sooner we realize that, the better.
I just want to shift your focus quickly before I let you go to the Transnet strike. I mean, we just received SAFTU's statement. They issued it not so long ago, rejecting Transnet's latest offer of between 4 to 5%. Their biggest issue being that it's below the inflation rate. What is your position on this?
SAFTU stands firmly behind the workers at Transnet who have decided to embark on a strike following the government, or rather now the parastatal, offering them a salary way below the rate of inflation, which is hovering anything between 7.4 and even 7.8% in some of the weeks. We are rejecting anything that is below inflation. And same goes with our rejection of the 3% that the government is offering. And this is the point that we should make South Africa to realize. If you look at all of the statistics today, the share of wages to the GDP is continuously declining and has been declining since 1991, which means that the bosses have succeeded to suppress the wages of workers for decades, for about 4 decades now. Non-stop, they will not give us anything close to inflation or above inflation, meaning that the standards of living of workers continues to decline, and it also means that the levels of profits by private firms is shooting the roof, and hence they can pay their CEOs so handsomely to be
But
amongst
Mr.
the
Vavi,
top paid
you know,
in the
business
whole
is
world.
very worried. I know you stand firmly behind them as Labour, but business is very worried, and so are ordinary citizens. Some sectors within the business space have actually taken a view that this is in fact economic sabotage, because there's hardly any movement to drive that economic recovery that people have been speaking of.
The economic sabotage happened when this government allowed its employees to run down Transnet, such that today we're seeing almost every business using the trucks that are conducting economic sabotage every time they take their wheels and put them into the highways that the poor are paying for, all the way to the harbors of South Africa. That's the economic sabotage by the government. Workers have absolutely nothing to do with that sabotage. It is the government that must carry the responsibility, and it is the corruption of the private sector in this country that have been giving bribes and oiling the hands of the CEOs, as we have just seen that they are now being charged in the courts. Those bribes didn't come from workers. They came from private sector bosses themselves. So you can't say workers therefore must carry the responsibility of a collapsing state-owned enterprise. Let's work together to fix the crisis of Transnet, of PRASA, of Petro SA and Dinel SAA, instead of all the time turning onto the workers to say they must carry the burden of the crisis that they didn't create.
Mr.